Fauchamaich Ye Olde Scot the Celtic podcast. Kimraha Huladunya, how is everyone? On today's show on Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig, that's Let's Try a Little Gaelic, the new series Traveling Gaelic. We're going to do numbers and ordinal numbers. You know, occasionally when you're going across the Highlands and in the islands, you'll see numbers written out, and it's nice to know what they mean. All right, in Celtic history, we're going to do the Celtic Creation story, and in everyday Celtic ways, the story of the Claddagh ring. Winter music from Carradillon and Vorach, the Blarney Brothers, and Bonnie Rideout. And as always, it's a wee bit of Irish trivia to test your knowledge to start us off. What was known as the Big D in 1970s Dublin? All right, check out the Ye Olde Scot Facebook group where you can be part of the Celtic culture. And keep an eye out for the Celtic Badass, Celtic Music Spotlight, Learn a Gaelic Song, and Dark Celtic History videos. Feuchamaich, let's kick this thing off. Alright, that was Mochri Trom, My Heavy Heart by Anna Vorach. And now it's time for Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig. Let's try a little Gaelic. Now, I'm not an authority on the Gaelic language. I just love learning it. I struggle like everybody else. But what I teach comes right from well-respected Gaelic teachers, so I hope you find it interesting, informative, and fun. I always display on the screen what I'm discussing so you can follow along. In these traveling Gaelic segments of Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig, I will concentrate on the words and phrases that come in handy while traveling to Gaelic-speaking parts of the world. Now, Gaelic-speaking parts of the world, they are bilingual, but learning these things will help you recognize Gaelic words and phrases when you see them. Going through a beginner's course will help you along the way. Olde Scot has a beginner's course on our Facebook group page. Feel free to download it. If you would like to hear the lessons, I've gone through the course week by week in my weekly podcast, and they begin back in May 15th of 2020 in that podcast. All right, now you're going to need to know some numbers to speak effectively in Gaelic, or just to sometimes even understand a sign on a building. So here is a start. Numbers 1 through 10. Un, 1. Ja, 2. Tri, 3. Ceathair, 4. Coic, 5. Shia, 6. Seach, 7. Och, 8. Noi, 9. And Jack, 10. And we'll move on to numbers 11 through 20. You'll see the way that these numbers are put together. It's a compound number. Un Jiag, 11. Da Jiag, 12. Tri Jiag, 13. Ceathair Jiag, 14. Coic Jiag, 15. Shia Jiag, 16. Seach Jiag, 17. Och Jiag, 18. Noi Jiag, 19. And Ficet, 20. Now in Gaelic, to start counting things greater than 10, the following construction is used. The noun is inserted between the words that create the compound number. For example, Shia Cora Jiag, 16 sheep, or Tre Dunya Jiag Iket, 33 people. All right. Other numbers that come in handy. Jek Iket, 30. Da Iket, 40. Da Iket Sejek, 50. Also, you'll see Le Hiet, which is half of 100. Tri Ficet, 60. Kiet, 100. And Mila, 1,000. Also, which come in handy, are ordinal numbers. First, second, third, fourth, kind of thing. And we're going to start with Hiet, first. Darna, second. Tres, third. Kietiv, fourth. Koakiv, fifth. Shiehiv, sixth. Shakiv, seventh. Okiv, eighth. Nuyev, ninth. And Jacob, 10th. Now, if you were to be saying you're having a sheep race and needed to count in ordinal numbers, the same construction is basically used. For example, Shietiv Chora, 6th sheep, or Tres Dunya Jiag, 13th person. All right, that's it for Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig. I hope you enjoyed it.
Stu
Alright, that was Tír na nÓg, Land of the Ever Young, by Anna Vorach. And today on Celtic History, we will go as far back in history as we can go. The Celtic Creation story. Now, long, long ago, the great void produced a god and a goddess named Don and Danu. When they looked at each other, a sacred flame burned in their hearts. They locked into a loving embrace from which they could not be separated. After a while, Don and Danu bore children. The children were caught between their interlocked parents and couldn't escape. One of the sons, Brian, decided that he needed to separate his parents or he and his brothers would die. Danu's love for her son won over her love for her husband, and she allowed Brian to slay his father. Now, Brian's fury was so great that he cut his father into 9 parts. Danu was horrified by what she had seen and started to cry. Her tears swelled into a great flood that swept away all of her children to earth. This is how Danu became known as the Waters of Heaven. The waters also washed away the 9 parts of Don. His head became the skies, his brain the clouds, his face the sun, his mind the moon, his bones the stones, and his breath the wind. Don's blood mixed with Danu's tears and became the seas. The red acorns fell to earth. Danu recognized her beloved in one of them. She cried again, and her tears soaked into the dry earth and made the seeds grow. The red acorn took root and grew into a marvelous oak tree. It was the reincarnation of Don. The other seeds became a priest, brother to Don. His name was Finn. Don saw his beloved Danu up above in heaven and stretched out his branches to the skies, trying to dry her tears with his leaves. Nurtured by the waters of heaven, the oak grew many berries, which fell and grew into the first humans. The people who grew from these berries were lazy because they couldn't die. There was no reason to do anything. Slowly, they became lazier and lazier until they began to rot from the inside. Don asked the advice of his brother Finn. "What do people need?" And Don replied, "What people do need is death," he said. "There must be renewal in the world." But Don didn't like this idea, and the 2 brothers started to fight. They fought long and hard. Finally, Finn was killed. Seeing his brother dead at his feet, Don was so overcome with pain that his heart burst apart. Parts of his body fell everywhere, and this renewed the world. But death did come to mankind. When Don died, 3 mighty roots of the oak grew deep into the ground, creating the other world, a place where people go after death. Don became the god of the underworld, while Danu remained the goddess of heaven. To this day their great love continues, even as they are separated by the earth.
Oh, the diamond is a ship, me lads, for the Davis Strait she's bound, and the key it is, I'll garnish it with bonny lasses round. Captain Thompson gives the orders to sail the ocean wide, where the sun it never sets, me lads, nor darkness thins the sky. And it's cheer up, me lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship, the diamond, goes a-fishing for the whale. Along the quay at Peterhead, the lassies stand around, with their shawls all pulled about them and their salt tears running down. Aye, don't you weep, my bonny lass, though you be left behind, for the rose will grow on Greenland's ice before we change our minds. And it's cheer up, me lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship, the diamond, goes a-fishing for the whale. Here's a health to the good ship Hercules, likewise a Mary Jane, and here's to the Battle of Montrose and the diamond ship of fame. We wear the trousers o' the white and the jackets o' the blue. When we return to Peterhead, we'll have sweethearts anew. And it's cheer up, me lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship, the diamond, goes a-fishing for the whale. Aye, it'll be bright both day and night till the Greenland lads come home, with a ship that's full of oil, me lads, and money to our name. We'll make the cradle for to rock and the blanket for to tear, and every lass in Peterhead sing hush-a-bye, my dear. And it's cheer up, me lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship, the diamond, goes a-fishing for the whale. And it's cheer up, me lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship, the diamond, goes a-fishing for the whale.
Alright, that was Bonnie Ship the Diamond by the Blarney Brothers. And now it's time for Everyday Celtic Ways. We're going to do a story called The Claddagh Ring Love Story. Now, almost everybody has heard of the Claddagh Ring. It is famous worldwide, been in movies, television, and is celebrated for its symbolism of friendship, loyalty, and love. But many do not know that of the Irish legend of this famous ring's creation, and just what that incredible symbolism has manifested from. The romantic Irish story of the Claddagh Ring goes that while enslaved after being captured by pirates, Richard Joyce, being forever broken-hearted, having been separated from his one true love, and losing what little hope of ever seeing her again, decided to survive the only way he knew how. For that little fleck of hope was all he had, and every mile from her at sea deepened his depression. Being a slave to pirates meant that, well, he did all the heavy lifting, and on occasion when he could, he would collect little flecks of gold and silver and store them away in his pocket. He believed with all his heart that he'd be able to return someday to his true love. He had to believe. So when he got time to himself, when there was no work to be done, he would pray to God for a symbol that would just express the depth of his unfailing love and the beauty he longed for. Finally, after many months a slave, he had a vision. So once he had enough precious metal, he began forging her a ring, using only a stone for shaping and coals from the cook's fire he was supposed to have thrown overboard. And soon he had fashioned her a ring of 2 hands holding a crowned heart. And this symbol of romantic Ireland has also come to mean true friendship and loyalty. But for Richard Joyce it meant so much more. All the years of his enslavement, he kept that ring as his most prized possession and guarded it with his life. When he finally was able to gain his freedom and return to Ireland, he was astounded to find that his true love had waited for him. The ring and their love story is why the Claddagh Ring is so well known.
as the lonesome scenes of winter, in stormy winds to blow, clouds around the center, inclined to frost and snow. You're the boy that I have chosen to be my only dear. Your scornful heart is frozen and drifted far, I fear. One night I went to see my love, but he proved most scornfully. I asked him if he'd marry me, but he would not marry me. The night it is was spent, my love, it's near the break of day. I'm waiting for your answer, my dear. What do you say? What's I can but plainly tell you, I lead a single life. I never thought it fitting that you should be my wife. So take a civil answer, and for yourself provide. I have another sweetheart, and you I've laid aside. Now my mind is changing, that old love for the new, this wide and lonesome valley I mean to ramble through, in search of someone handsome that might my fancy fill. This world is wide and lonesome if he don't another
All right, that was The Lonesome Scenes of Winter by Cara Dillon. Well, that's it for today's show. Hope you liked it. Top 11 Harrison. Now, before I let you go, the trivia question answer. What was known as the Big D in 1970s Dublin? Well, it was a pirate radio station. and it played all the rebellion songs that was banned on the state-controlled radio stations. You know, all the main musicians of the day were doing these kind of rebellious songs against the English, and they wouldn't get airplay. This was the only place that would happen, and it helped ramp up the fervor of the nationalist movement in Ireland. All right, remember to check out my YouTube channel, Olde Scot, the Celtic Badass, the Celtic Music Spotlight, Celtic Podcast, Speaking Our Language, Learn a Gaelic Song, Dark Celtic History videos, and lots more. And my Facebook group, Olde Scot, where you can give me your insights and inputs on all things Celtic. Marsh and Leave in Drogheda, bye for now, but I'm going to let you go with a song. Bog on Lochan, Drowsy Maggie. Sleepy Maggie by Bonnie Rideout. All right.